Don't expect a Crash Team Racing killer here because MEOW Motors is way too far from that, but still it's not as bad of a game. Heck, I would say it has even some nice elements to it. So this is a kart race developed by Art Vostok, released for PC in 2018 and then for everything else in 2019, and it would not surprise me if nobody knew who these guys were, mainly because MEOW Motors is their only game. Well, technically. Because mostly they work in the background for other developers, being making 3D props, 3D characters, concept arts, weapons, etc. You might see some of their work in War Thunder, Hawk, or even Tiny Tina's Wonderland. You are looking at a PlayStation 4 version here, and it's very obvious what you do. Race around, get items to use against your opponents, and be first. So, pretty standard stuff, but there are things that make this game quite worth it. Well, at least for what it is, you know. You start off in the career mode, and it was actually quite surprising to see that Art Vostok even cared about the story. That shows the developers cared quite a lot about their product, and they did a nice job with these comic book stylish cutscenes where Rocky was racing around and then his rival screws him up big time. Rocky gets in an accident and therefore out of the race, and while he initially thought about it, he still refused to give up. So now you play as Rocky and the game throws you into a tutorial. The controls are pretty basic, and I like how the developers don't force the analog stick up your ass like many other racing games do. Kudos there. After the tutorial you get thrown into kind of a championship format, meaning your goal is to get a certain amount of stars to be able to move on and unlock new stuff like new cars that sadly are just aesthetic, but the new characters all have effects. And yes, they are all cats. One nice thing is that you will also unlock new items for the racing part, meaning what you unlock also gets unlocked for the upcoming races and everybody can use it. That was quite an interesting idea, to lock the items behind the stars instead of having everything unlocked from the start, because it gives you more of a reason to move forward in the story and increase the item choices and gradually increase the chaos on track. Also nice is that you can clearly see what the items are before you even get them, and that increases the strategy aspect of the game by a bit. And as a side note, there are 3 difficulties here, and I would suggest to just ignore easy and medium, because those are a bit too forgiving. Well, unless you want to let your kids play or something, then that's different. I actually quite like the presentation of the new items you've unlocked. It just makes you feel like you've earned what you've got. Many items are the usual stuff, but there are some really nice ones like the bubblegum. You throw it onto the track and whoever drives over it will get massive damage. And you really get damaged, as you can see here, and yes, your car will get slightly slower. But getting these wrenches will repair your car. The presentation of the new characters is also quite nice, and each one has personality. They look different and react differently. Well, outside of the tracks anyway. Their individual effects will trigger once on track, but sadly their personality won't shine once you are on track, because they all react the exact same way and do the exact same movements as if these characters never had personality to begin with, essentially undoing whatever characteristics they had during the selection screen. That's quite a shame. The cards themselves don't have stats, so it's mainly just whatever you prefer. The tracks are quite fine as they are, some even have multiple routes, and this one at night is quite nicely done. You have over 10 tracks to drive on, and while that's not much, considering the length and low budget feel of the game, then the amount of tracks are actually okay. What's not really okay are the modes. You have your story mode, which is quite fine, and your quick race mode, which is also quite fine. You can play this one with up to 4 players, which is quite nice, but there's nothing beyond that. Maybe a mode or two more would have done MEOW Motors a favor. Race types are also a bit on the low side because there are only 3 types. Normal race, where your goal is to be first, drift, where you have to drift around and get the most amount of points while avoiding these mines, I guess, and finally there is strike, where each opponent has a health bar and you have to use items to get rid of that health bar. The more opponents you destroy, the more points you get, but pay attention because if the opponents destroy you, then you lose a point. These 3 modes are actually quite fine on their own, but maybe a bit more variety would have helped here, especially because it will get a bit repetitive having to do the same things during the story mode. I have nothing to say when it comes to the visuals. Heck, I would even say that they look quite nice overall. However, the music is where this game fails a bit, because it's beyond generic, as if most tracks were those royal free tracks that anybody can download at any time. The background music has zero personality and doesn't even always fit the theme of the track. But the sound effects are fine. So the last point are the controls. Well, all cars feel a bit too floaty for my taste, but outside of that, they are not too bad. But again, the car you use won't make any difference. One interesting thing though is this part right here. This is nitro that you can use during any race and it mostly fills up if you drift around. But you can use this bar for something else. Oil. Yeah, instead of using it for nitro, you can spill oil behind you to make the opponents lose control over their car if they drive over it. But mind you, the opponents will do the same thing to you too, so pay attention. However, if you have this glamorous cat, then she won't be affected by it. But I quite like this option between nitro and oil. It makes you think twice before using it up and adds a bit more of a strategy to the race. And this one is a special meter. Once it's full, then any weapon you currently have will get stronger. And this wall fills up on its own over time. Yes, MEOW Motors is obviously low budget, but really this could have been insanely fun if it had more modes, the cars felt less floaty, had way better music and a few other things, because you can actually see that the developers cared a lot for this game. They did a lot of things that I actually quite like and added a lot of character to the game, so it's quite a shame this game couldn't be more than it is in its overall length of about 4 hours max.